Pragmatism by John Dewey. Let us know first what is pragmatism. The root of the word pragmatism is a Greek word meaning work. And according to this, the truth or meaning of an idea or a proposition lies in its observable practical consequences rather than anything metaphysical. It can be summarized by the phrase, whatever works is likely true. In other words, pragmatism is the philosophy that encourages us to seek out the processes and do things that work best to help us achieve desirable ends. Pragmatism is also a practical, matter-of-fact way of approaching or assessing situations or solving problems. Let us now think, how can we apply this to students? For us future teachers and for teachers, we can apply this by involving a lot of group works where learners have to come to mutual agreements. Teachers should explicitly teach students group work, cooperation, and negotiation skills. They should then encourage children to practice those skills throughout their daily task. Now, the main goal of this is to prepare the child as for well-adjusted and prosperous existence. Pragmatism claims that the students can learn the information that allows them to solve today's problem. In practical life, they can learn only those skills that are useful to them. Now, for pragmatism, there are two main principles. First one is education should have a social function, meaning for pragmatism, education should be practical, since this practicality will help students throughout his journey and through his or her adult's life. Second is education should provide real life experience to the child. Let us now move on to the forms of pragmatism. First one is humanistic pragmatism. This type of pragmatism is particularly found in social sciences. And according to this, the satisfaction of human nature is the criterion of utility. Second one is experimental pragmatism. According to this, no truth is final. Truth is known only to the extent it is useful in practice. The pragmatists use this criterion of truth in everyday field of life. Third one is the nominalistic pragmatism. According to this, the results of an experiment are always particular and concrete, and this will never be general and abstract. Fourth one is biological pragmatism. The ultimate aim of knowledge is harmony of the man with the environment. This means that education develops social skill which facilitates one's life. The education should provide a healthy environment or healthy surroundings in order to prepare the child for his future.
Now we will talk about pragmatism and educative process. Activity lies at the center of all educative process. The basis of all teaching is the activity of the child, says Foster. It means that by providing different kinds of activities which are appropriate to the learning process of the students can help them nurture. Because every continuous experience or activity is educative, and all education is fact resides in having such experience. But continuous growth in experience is not the whole education. Education is something more. It is a constant reorganizing or reconstructing of experience. Thus, pragmatism approaches the problem of education from the progressivist's viewpoint. Progress implies change. Change further implies novelty. So, education cannot be conceived of as acquired once for all. Problem solving is at the core of all education. The educative process thus becomes empirical, experimental, and piecemeal, in a word, pragmatic. There are some educational implications in pragmatism. First is the education as life. Pragmatists firmly believe that old and traditional education is dead and lifeless because education is a continuous reorganizing reconstructing, and integrating the experience and activities of race. And we all know that as time goes by, our generation continues to develop as well as our education system. For example, is the K-12 program in high school and also the learner-centered classroom wherein the students are the focus of the teachers. Pragmatists want to conserve the worthwhile culture of the past, think out the solution to meet the new situation, and then integrate the two. Real knowledge can be gained only on activity, experiments, and real life experiences. Also, we have education as growth. Education will be useful if it brings about the growth and development of the individual as well as the society in which he lives. Education is meant for the child, and the child is not meant for education, and child is not an empty bottle to be filled up by outside knowledge. Each child is born with inherent capacities, tendencies, and aptitudes which are drawn out and developed by education. One of the aims of education is to develop all the inherent capacities of the child to the fullest extent. Third is the education as social process. To pragmatism, man is a social being. He gains more and more knowledge through personal experience than he gets from books. According to pragmatism, the education of the child should be through the medium of society so that he or she develops socially desirable qualities which promote his welfare and happiness. Next is the education, a continuous restructuring of experience. Education is a process of knowledge. Knowledge is gained by experiences and experiments conducted by the learners himself. One exercise leads to another, and so on, and the area of knowledge is widened by the child. The process of reconstruction of experience goes on and leads to the adjustment and development of personality. For pragmatists, educational process has no end beyond itself. In addition to the individual, it is continuous reorganizing, reconstructing, and integrating the experience and activities of the race. Individuals acquired and learn new knowledge or information continuously through experience. Then they tend to reconstruct or fit this experience and information to the existing schemas. The last one is the education, the responsibility of the state. Education is the birthright of each individual and may not be within the right of the individual, so that the state should be the one to shoulder the responsibility. Thus, every individual has a right to education according to human rights. And the government will be the one to provide education, especially to those people beyond the fringe. That is why we have public schools. The refusal of the state to do so may not lead the nation to suffering. It is for the state to make the child capable and confident to meet the problems and challenges of life successfully.
Now, let us now move on to its aim in education. Pragmatism does not lay down any aims of education in advance. It believes that there are no fixed aims of education. Life is dynamic, meaning there is a constant change, and hence the aims of education are bound to be dynamic, meaning there should be a progress. Education also deals with human life. Now, the aim of this is therefore to direct the impulses, interests, desires, and abilities towards the satisfaction of the felt wants of the child in his environment. The children should be so trained that they may be able to solve their present day problems, efficiency, and to adjust themselves to their social environment. They should be creative and effective members of the society. Their outlook should be dynamic that they can change with the changing situations. The curriculum of pragmatism or its field of curriculum development. In pragmatism, there are four principles, and the first one is principle of utility. Now, according to this principle, Only those subjects, activities, and experiences should be included in the curriculum which are useful to the present needs of the child and also meet their future expectation of adult life as well. Like for example, language, physical well-being, physical training, geography, history, science, and so on and so forth. Second one is the principle of interest. Now, according to this principle, only those activities and experiences wherein the child takes interest should be included in the curriculum. According to John Dewey, there are four varieties of interest. First one is interest in conversation. Second, interest in investigation. Third is interest in construction. And fourth, interest in creative expression. For the third one is the principle of experience. Now, for this, the curriculum should consist of such varieties of learning experiences which promote original thinking and freedom to develop social purposeful attitude. Fourth one is principle of integration. This principle deals with the integration of the subjects and activities. And according to this, pragmatist wants to construct flexible, dynamic, and integrated curriculum which aids the developing child and the changing society more and more as the needs, demands, and situation require.
Let us go now to pragmatism and methods. The principle of philosophy of pragmatic method of teaching is practical utility, meaning it deals with problem in a practical way rather than using theories or abstract principles. The child is the central figure in this method. Pragmatic method is an activity-based method. The essence of pragmatic method is learning through personal experience of the child. To a pragmatist, education means preparation for practical life. Also, according to pragmatists, education is not so much teaching the child things he ought to know, as encouraging him to learn for himself through experimental and creative activity. Learning by doing makes a person creative, confident, and cooperative. The pragmatic method is socialistic in nature. His learning should be truly purposive. He should learn to fulfill the purpose of his life. The method employed by the pragmatist teacher is experimental. The pupil is required to discover the truth for himself. To facilitate this discovery, the application of the inductive and heuristic method of teaching is necessary. Experiences should therefore be planned to arouse the curiosity of children to acquire knowledge. Textbooks and teachers are not so much important in pragmatic education. Their position is secondary in teaching learning process. They are required to suggest and prompt only. The teacher suggests problems, indicates lines of solution, and then leaves the student to experiment for themselves. So it means that the students are learning independently. And with that, it makes the pragmatism as a auto-education or self-education. In addition, in pragmatism, teacher is regarded as a helper, guide, and philosopher. The chief function of pragmatic teacher is to suggest problem to his pupil and to stimulate them to find by themselves the solutions. The teacher must provide opportunities for the natural development of the innate qualities of the children. Their main task is to suggest problem to the pupils and to guide them to find solutions. Also, to utilize the interest of the pupil is the basis of discipline here in pragmatism. The teacher and pupils attack or solve the problem jointly. Teacher's role is to guide and to be a director. It is the pupil who acts. Education becomes a social process of sharing between the members of the various groups, and all are equal partners in the process. That is no reward. Also, there are no placing for the martinent, so any punishment. The discipline proceeds from the life of the school as a whole. Now we will be tackling about the demerits of pragmatism. First is opposition to eternal truths. Pragmatism is opposed to predetermined truth. According to it, truth changes according to a change in circumstances, times, and places, and is created by the consequences of our actions as well as our experience. Second, opposition of predetermined ideas and values. This emphasizes that ideals and values are man-made and change according to changes in circumstances, times, and places. But all noble things have entered into this human world by the effort of those great persons who were inspired by the great ideas, namely the truth, beauty, and goodness. The third one is no predetermined aims of education. There are no set and predetermined aims of education as well. In the absence of definite aims of education, all educational plans and efforts may go astray and achieve nothing. The fourth one is negations of spiritual values. Pragmatists deny the existence of spiritual values. Negligence of spiritual value is a great blunder. Without developing spiritual values, achieving human welfare, peace, and satisfaction simply to cry for the moon. And then for the fifth demerit is the opposition of intellectuality. Pragmatists believe that a man's intelligence is subservient to his innate tendencies. This makes him only an animal. And now we will go to the last demerits of pragmatism, which is the negation of past. Pragmatist emphasizing only the present and future and neglects the past. Without the knowledge of the past one, we cannot understand the present, and without knowing the present, truly nothing can be predicted for the future.
There are also merits of pragmatism. First one is construction of project method. Pragmatism helps child to indulge in various creative activities and will be able to solve many problems which cater to his natural progress and development. Second one is importance of child. Pragmatism lays great stress upon the development of child's individuality by his own efforts, meaning pragmatism will help the child to be dependent on his own abilities and capabilities. Third one is emphasis on activity. Pragmatism emphasizes upon activity. The principle of learning by doing is the main contribution of pragmatism. Pragmatism can help a student or a learner to be a kinesthetic type of learner, meaning they will learn through hands-on activities or by doing things on their own. Fourth is faith in applied life. Pragmatism emphasizes the practical life of child. Pragmatism education prepares the child for future life in a very effective manner. Fifth one is social and democratic education. Pragmatism develops in the child love for democratic values and social efficiency, which bring harmonious adjustment and development of personality. And the last merit of pragmatism is infusion of new life in education. Pragmatism will help revolutionize or will help evolve the process of education to a very great extent. This has infused a new life and zest in education.
To sum up this report, the student-centered curriculum calls for team teaching and courses offered by different departments. Projects and hands-on experiences have definite advantages over lectures. According to pragmatists, this methodology focuses on giving students a great deal of autonomy as well as alternatives to their current learning circumstances. The learning environment turns into a methodical laboratory in which thoughts are experienced to determine whether they can be authenticated. Pragmatic philosophy is a practical philosophy having no fixed or absolute standards. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.